Minutes after 8 o'clock, this is the Situation Room. We're getting into the third hour of our conversations this morning, and we get into one with, you know how they say when you look for gold, you look for it and then sometimes you won't find it. You might get into a mine and you could dig for months and you wouldn't find it, but then finally, you hit something. Right? And then they take it to the water and they start to swirl and then it's starting to glitter. And in this case, it actually is gold. That's how you look for it. And that's how we've looked for one gentleman who's in the hot seat already this morning. Justice David Maraga, Emeritus, Chief Justice. Good morning.
Good morning, honey. Thank you.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Karibu sana. Thank you for being here this morning.
Yes.
You're in the hot seat of the Situation Room, and we're starting off the morning with a conversation with you. And I say what I said because we did, soon after you said certain things and you declared certain things, we started looking for you from that point. But here we are now, and we have an opportunity to discuss all those things in the length and breadth of their importance. So thank you for coming this morning. Let's welcome you properly. You have practiced interpretation for the longest time. Dennis is going to share a proverb from one of Africa's countries, and we'd like to hear your interpretation of that as we start things this morning.
The country we're in, due to its plateaus, hills and rivers, is considered to be the heart of Africa. In 2019, it changed its capital from Bujumbura to Gitega. We're talking about Burundi. And in this country, the proverb that we have today is all about the drums, and this also relates to the beautiful culture they have of the drums and how they balance it in the head. Still remains being a mystery, but it's what Burundians are known for across the world. Now, when the drum sounds, it's not for one person. When the drum sounds, it's not for one person. How would you interpret that?
When the drum sounds, it is for everyone. What I understand that to mean is that it's a call to action. It is a call to getting together, and doing what is required to be done. Yes.
Well put.
Well put. So, times are very interesting where we are right now, Justice Maraga, and I want to take you back some years where towards the end of your tenure as Chief Justice, one of the things that you recommended, very strongly so, was that we just are not getting things right. So one of the things that needs to happen, and I'm just using layman's terms here, is that Parliament needed to be dissolved. And let's start from the beginning. We're going to tie that into the current happenings in the nation and also then into the positions that you would like to take later on. But at that time, you made a recommendation that Parliament be dissolved and let's start from the beginning. Why did you do that then?
The Constitution. Thank you, my sister. The Constitution commanded me to. I said that at that time. It is the same thing I'm saying now. Let's go back, let's reset the country back to constitutionalism. Why constitutionalism? We have the best constitution, one of the best constitutions in the world, with very, very many provisions, human rights, the most elaborate bill of human rights, and laws. What happened in the towards the end of my term? The Constitution required Parliament to enact legislation to have gender balance, so that no one gender is more than as more than 2/3 of the slots in government and in institutions. So they were required to enact a law to implement that, and they were given 5 years. 5 years went on. They would bring bills to Parliament. play around with them, and then they don't pass. And the Constitution required that if there are petitions made by any Kenyan, the Chief Justice, if it merits, he should recommend to the President to dissolve Parliament. Why was that necessary? That was necessary so that the parliamentarians would see how serious that provision was. They failed. I had eight petitions. I served them on Parliament. I served them on the Executive, the Attorney General. They made submissions, written submissions. I considered them. I didn't find any good reason why they had not enacted the legislation. So I made the recommendation as I was required by the Constitution.
It's married to the entire conversation around the adherence to the rule of law, and that there are certain things which are not suggestions. They're not pick from the menu kind of thing, how
Correct.
you're feeling on a Wednesday morning.
Yes.
It's the rule of law. It's
Yes.
required that everybody goes along with those things.
Yes.
Did you see at that time that there was an issue with the adherence to the rule of law? Do you see that there is one today?
Yes. That time there were quite a number of government officials, as that time and even now, who were disobeying the law left, right, and center. But it is worse now. It is worse. It is much worse now. So, what does that require? When we talk about constitutionalism, when we talk about the rule of law requires that everybody obeys the law. Starting with the president himself, the head of state. You know, there is that notion, wrong notion the public have that the president is above the law. That's not what it means. What it means is that you can't take the president when he is a sitting president to court. But if he disobeys the law, if he flouts anybody's rights, as soon as he gets out of that position, he can be taken to court. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is that we want to reset the country back to constitutionalism, so that the law, the constitution, and the law are obeyed by everyone, starting from the top. And you know, when you do that, you send a message to everyone that the law has to be obeyed. You have got to end impunity. When you are in a lawless country, as if I may put that so, impunity reigns. People can decide to do what they want to do, and you know that is a recipe for anarchy. Yeah. That's a recipe for anarchy. So we have to get back to where we are supposed to.
So, Chief Justice, when you talk about constitutionalism, we have these centers of power. So you have the executive, which with the current state of affairs in this nation appears to be practicing that impunity. We have today concerns that Parliament is captured by the very executive. Then there are also concerns that the judiciary that looks into all these matters is also somewhat playing wishy-washy. It's not coming out clear out of all these institutions who is really upholding our constitutions as Kenyans go to the streets. My question to you, looking back at your own legacy and where we are today as a nation, and looking specifically at the legacy of the judiciary, would you evaluate the current judiciary and the Chief Justice Martha Koome compared to the judiciary left behind? How would you evaluate the two?
Thank you, Okari. I sometimes don't want to compare myself with somebody else, because everyone has his own style of leadership, and you know, there are times you might find that even the conditions under which I operated as compared with those under which the current judiciary is operating may be different. I'm talking about funding. Funding is critical for any institution. With the number of cases now increasing by the day, but without commensurate increase of charges and magistrates, the situation would be difficult. But let me say about the institutions. You have talked about Parliament being captured. Yeah, you can see that. Like you see, like the case that took the Gen Zs to the streets was the bill, the finance bill. The Gen Zs were saying, look, you need to look at this more carefully. And the MPs, if I remember well, the conversation was, okay, we are past it. Utadu? It's like, what are you going to do? We are past it. That's why they went there, and I'm told that some MPs were whisked out of Parliament at that time for their own safety. So that is when Parliament has been captured. If Parliament were acting on its own, independently, without any interference, they would perhaps have passed the finance bill with amendments, take into account the issues that the Gen Zs were raising, and we would not have gotten into that situation. So institutional capture by the executive is a terrible thing. Now the institutions and you know, the capture is not just a situation where you are told what to do. You are given a mandate, then you're starved of funds, and you can't be able to discharge that. When you say, look, I don't have money, I do this, sometimes somebody doesn't even have to tell you, look, listen to what I'm saying first before I can give you money. But you can read it on their faces, if you want me to use that expression of reading on their faces. You can hear what the conversation is out here. Somebody is saying, look, the judiciary is doing this, they are hampering. Like there was a time when they were saying the judiciary is interfering with Parliament. And when that comes and you hear them talking, what they are telling you is that play ball and we will give you funds.
And did you at your time face the pressure for capture during your tenure?
I think I am one of the Chief Justices who faced the greatest pressure because of the 2017 judgment. If you may allow me to, 2017 judgment, some people said, look, why is Maraga behaving like this? The president has garnered more votes than anybody else. But when you looked at the evidence, how did he garner that? And we went into the process. We went to, I don't want to repeat what we done. I mean, so that for me to live or to uphold the Constitution, I had no choice but to, like my three other judges, but to reject the what? The election. To annul the election. So after that, budget cuts were the order of the day for the judiciary.
Do you connect the two? Do you say that
of course.
Because it was very clear, we remember your words very clearly, that on the issue of procedure, then you had no choice but to call the election null and void, and then to recommend that a new election take place. Are you saying that as a result of that, because we did hear former President Uhuru Kenyatta, register his dissatisfaction, I guess I'm putting that lightly, in that decision. So are you saying that budget cuts and other things came as a result of that announcement, even though you did recommend, and then went on to accept the results of a secondary election?
Yes, that the budget cuts were as a result of that. Of course, there's a time they said that there were budget cuts in all the institutions in the country. But the judiciary was hit most. When they said that there was going to be budget cuts by a half, some of the budget lines, I remember that's the time we were planning for digitization of the judicial processes, and we needed a lot of money. Mm-hmm. We had, I remember vividly, we had about 400 million shillings for IT. Instead of taking half, they took the whole of it. Mm-hmm. And what that meant is, we were rendered unable to process that. But thank God, I had a very good relationship with the development partners. They are the ones who gave me funds to start the digitization of the judicial processes. Mm-hmm. And later on, now it peaked, and you know what it is now. People are able to hear cases from their homes. Lawyers are able to do their cases from the comforts of their homes. And that what that means is it saves a lot of time for everyone. And it's a process. In fact, some lawyers have told me that, CJ, if there is anything as far as they are concerned that I did that was wonderful for them, is that process of having now using IT, and now they are able to do cases virtually.
So CJ, if you look at in terms of constitutionalism and rule of law, one would go back, say, to the 2017 decision that was made, and you remember the statement that came out after that was, we shall revisit. And the revisiting that happened was the budget cuts that you're talking about right now. But forward to that, you now see court orders not being respected by the highest office in land. You look at even in the current dispensation, the way court orders are not being respected by the leadership. Talk about police officers, the deputy IG being summoned 7 times and still not showing up, and it's still continuing even as we speak today. So in terms of resetting the country and the citizenry to respect the rule of law, what kind of president has the leadership in terms of disrespecting court orders done to the country and to the citizenry?
Thank you. I think the first thing what he has done is actually to delegitimize himself. You can't call people to obey the law which you are yourself disobeying. Talk of double standards. And you know what that means is that, as I said, that brings in impunity. And the impunity, supposing you are asked to, say, vacate this office, there's a court order for you to vacate this office because, it belongs to somebody else, and you refuse. That somebody will come here with a gun. And what are you talking about? It is going to lead to lawlessness. So the disregard of court orders, not only court orders, and even several provisions of the Constitution and the Acts, is a very, very sad state of affairs in our country. Very, very sad state of affairs. And you know, by the way, because it is being done from the top echelons of the administration, it is being done right into the village. It is being done right into the village. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they says, look, I bought a piece of land. Somebody, after some time, he changes and he doesn't want to go on with the sale. And he comes, beginning breaking my buildings. When I complain, he says, look, where are you going to take me? I know the police. I know the police. You can go and report to the police, and we will see what is done. And sure enough, he said he reported, but nothing has been done for several months. So that's what I'm saying. You when you set that example from the top, it goes down all to the society, and that is chaos. And there are many people suffering because of what the president and his team are doing in administration.
And it is that impunity that you're speaking of that is leading the Gen Z to go to the streets. And you recently marched with the Gen Z, just to fast forward. We'll be skirting around these issues, going back and forth, but to just take you to the latest incidents. you recently marched with the Gen Zs on the streets. We saw you. Some critics, and you were largely discussed in the National Assembly, and your critics said that your participation in the protests undermined your impartiality as expected of a former Chief Justice, so to speak. What's your response to that? And as a result of that, your security was withdrawn. Has it been reinstated?
Thank you. You know, the victims, the families of the victims of the 2024 Gen Z demonstration that led to about 60 deaths and several others injured, felt that they, on their own, I had nothing, I was not concerned. But I was told, look, they have arranged to come and march, lay flowers, and so that their loved ones are not forgotten. I said, look, yeah, these people have a cause. These people have a cause. They have lost their loved ones. And I felt sympathetic, and I said, look, this is a cause I wanted to identify myself with. First of all, to go in solidarity with those families, and secondly, and for me, that march should be a broad view should be taken of that march. What are they telling the nation? This should not happen to anybody else. That time, it is those victims who suffered. It could be you tomorrow. So that message. So I went to the with the families. In fact, we went to there is a restaurant across Nation Center where the mothers and family members, siblings of some of the victims were, and we started marching to. You see that statue on Kimati Street?
Yes,
that's where they wanted to lay the flowers. So we started. We didn't even move 20 meters before
tear gas.
Tear gas was shot to us. I have had claims that some people went and blocked the road and set fire on tires.
Yes,
that was not there. I can assure you that those people were peaceful. One other thing we should remember, the police themselves had promised that the families of the deceased persons would be assisted, would be facilitated. In fact, they said even the police would be there with them. So that is the last thing I expected. Now to come round and say that I didn't behave well, that's their opinion, and in my view, extremely wrong. We are supposed to be heartless. We are supposed not to be concerned. If they are not concerned, some of us are. Some of us are.
And your security was withdrawn.
My security was withdrawn. It has been restored. In fact, some have not been asked to come back, even as we speak. They started with my driver and the bodyguards, but they have restored the driver. One bodyguard is yet to come back. Then they came one morning. I wake up and I'm told by one of my people at home that they have picked the security who were at the gate. They went away, but they were that was restored yesterday.
But your security detail, your driver, you speak to them. You are with them nearly constantly all the time. When they are being withdrawn, just to understand, when they're being withdrawn, do they come and tell you, sir, we've been told we are leaving? Or do they just disappear? You wake up and your driver is not there, your security detail is not there. Do they tell you who has given the order to withdraw them?
In this case, what I was told is that they were rang to go to report to their office, their bases, not to come to my home. but instead to report to their bases.
So pretty much, even when the withdrawal was happening, there is no notification or reasons given to you as to why they were being withdrawn.
No. But there was no notice at all.
But even while at it, as CJ, you went to the street. I saw Mama Rex holding your hand after the tear gas was lobbed. And even while at it, when you hear Gladys Bose saying that you misbehaved, but one asked the question, are you a Kenyan first? Do you have the right to go demonstrate? Or once you're a CJ, that right has been taken away from you? Just make us understand. And even when you're with the families of the victims, when you speak to them, what did they tell you? For context.
What they told me, I mean, let's start with their case. What they told me is that they are aggrieved. They are terribly aggrieved. In fact, you would see people who are mourning, who are still mourning. They said, look, our loved ones were killed, they were maimed, and nothing has been done about that. They can't put an end to that. So they said, look, to our loved ones, they didn't deserve any life. Yeah? They are not like any other Kenyans. So they were grieving. They are grieving. The people who are grieving. Now, when it comes to me, I have a right. I have a right also to if there is something which is not being done under Article 37, I have a right to express that by a demonstration, as long as the demonstration is peaceful. You are not breaking any law. We have had a lot of allegations that those people have broken the law. They are broken into shops. The breakages are there, and I feel for the owners of those businesses. What is the purpose of those who want to march giving notice to the police? They are giving notice to the police so that the police can anticipate what would come, because there could be goons, there could be thieves who want to take advantage of that and break. So the notice, in my understanding, is supposed to tell the police, look, we are marching. We don't know what the other people will do.
No, do
take care. Provide security. Anticipate where, for example, there is going to be looting, and provide security.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, we're asking questions around, or having a conversation really, around the political dispensation in which we find ourselves, and also about constitutional order. We're looking into, it's a plethora of issues when we have this conversation, where we're coming in from a judicial standpoint, going towards constitutional order, and then what we see about what would the next leadership look like. And even as we did see the protests come, there are social justice issues that are taking place here. There are constitutional issues that are taking place here. There are presidential issues that are all taking place here. And in the light of that, you joined the protest. There was a lot of castigation that came out, as we've established here. And then the difficult question comes that, having been Chief Justice Emeritus, if you were not putting yourself in a position whereby you wanted the Kenyan people to choose you for president, would we have seen you in the streets joining the protest with those who were bereaved?
I may not have come directly like that, because of quite a number of issues. I'm not saying I came because I'm fighting for president, but I would in one way or the other sympathize with those people, see what I could do to assist them. Let's look at what prompted all this.
Yeah.
I want to tell the Kenyans that where we are at the moment, with the level of impunity where we are, we can't go on like this. As I've said, we go on like this, we are going to, this is a recipe for anarchy. We must restore back our country to where it is supposed to be under the Constitution. So with that, we have seen how human life has been actually almost abased. When you go killing people, when you go maiming people, whom you are supposed to protect, what does that tell you? What that tells you is that the administration, this administration, has no regard for human dignity.
Right.
So we want to restore the human dignity that the Kenyans deserve.
And it's interesting because even after your term as Chief Justice, you were then given a position as the lead on a committee that was going to go into police reforms.
Yes.
And it is interesting that we speak about those excesses now, and you then delivered a report last year around what needed to change. Give us a few highlights from that vis-a-vis what we see currently, whereby unfortunately now very glaring reports about what of those excesses which were in that report.
Yes, thank you very much. I was asked, under the act, the retirement of Chief Justices, Deputy Presidents, and that's why we have even the retirement package. The act requires you to serve in any capacity that you may be requested. So my appointment to the police reform task force was in that under that provision, under those provisions. So when I was asked to look into that, the first thing the task force did was to assess the previous reports on police reform and even prison reforms. And there are several reports, there were several recommendations that had been made in the past, but that had not been implemented fully. You just lip service, and the police remain frustrated. They can't perform their duties properly, and I think that was what was felt in the run-up to the 2022 general elections, and they promised they would go. They would look into their welfare. So when we went around the country, as you may be aware, we got views from the public, we got views from the police themselves, both junior and senior police officers, and what we came up with was that there's a lot of disregard for the law. The junior officers were complaining that they are not listened to. They are just told to do this or that. They are not facilitated. And you find that somebody goes to the police station to report a crime, and the OCS has no way of dealing with that because he has no fuel. When you go into the details, you find that the funds allocated for fuel has been utilized for something else or has been misappropriated.
By who?
By the either the police seniors and others. So, as a result of that, and the housing, the things like the housing, and we looked and found out that even the salaries, the way the salaries and the salary commission was doing it was wrong. Because the criteria they were following was wrong. Putting the police in the category of clerks. It's not, those don't match. So we made recommendations, and quite a number of recommendations. A few of them have been implemented. There are the main ones which have not been recommended. Because we established that one major problem with the police is control by the executive. I have heard people talk about the police being independent. When you control the leadership of the police, what do you expect? The Constitution provides for a competitive recruitment. Article 232 provides for competitive recruitment to especially senior positions. That was removed in 2015 by an amendment to the Police Act. So one of our recommendations was that restore that competitive recruitment, so that when the IG, for example, is appointed through a competitive process, he will be there and he will be independent. Of course, he will have respect for the president, because by the nature of their work, they must work with the president, maintain order, restore peace, and maintain peace. But there are operational aspects that the IG, the president can tell the IG, and the IG tells him, no, Your Excellency, I can't do that. The law does not allow me to do that. Now, with that removed, now the president is the one who appoints, as it were, he picks who he wants, and he takes him to Parliament for vetting. That person is loyalty is first to the president, so he will do what the president requires him to do. And what that ends up with is that the police have now been weaponized against the opponents of the executive.
And so this control, so this control you're talking about, was the complaint coming from the police themselves that, look, we're being controlled by the executive? Was it coming from them?
The juniors, especially the junior officers, told us whenever they complained, they were told, look, those are orders from above. Those are orders from above. And you could feel it, even when you speak to the senior officers. And we met quite a number of senior officers. By the way, the police service has quite a number of very learned police officers who could do a wonderful job, but they are not given an opportunity. When it comes to promotions, it is who you know to be promoted. And we said, no, this is not right. So quite a number of those, police officers, intelligent and well-educated, are not given an opportunity. And as a result, they are frustrated and they can't work. So because of that, we recommended that there should be a structured promotion process that gives a chance to everybody to aspire for higher positions and be interviewed and he advances in his career. So my understanding is that with that kind of recruitment and the way even their funding is done, they are beholden to the executive, and they have to take their orders and their wishes. Given an opportunity, if I'm privileged to lead this country, I would restore that independence to the police, so that the police are independent. The police can come and tell you, Your Excellency, you said this, but the Constitution doesn't allow us to do that. And I would respect that. And that is not only to the police, it is to very many institutions. The institutions are there, and they are being interfered with. In fact, including, you know it, including even our universities. When leadership in the universities is interfered with, the freedom of thought, the freedom of action is removed. The institutions have been emasculated. Given an opportunity, that's what we will restore, so that the institutions are given their independence. Institutions are well facilitated to do what they are supposed to do.
Chief Justice, where my concern comes in is in your report, because you borrowed a lot from the previous reports on police reforms, from the Kavuludi-led reform task force now to yours, which is the most recent. And through the entire process of reforms, going into your report, there's a lot of heaviness towards administrative and to some extent operational look on the police itself. Going with the recent events that we've seen during these protests and the behavior of police through the training curriculum and change of culture, isn't there a concern that you may change emoluments, you may change housing, you may change the independence of the officers, but when it comes to training, that element and understanding the Constitution and the Public Order Act and understanding all these things, when they come to the streets, you don't see it. It doesn't match to all the things that you're talking about in terms of administration and operational? Where is the disconnect?
Thank you very much. One of the major recommendations we gave was training. We felt it. First of all, the training given at Kiganjo is very, very short. The period is very, very short. We recommended that the period be extended. Why? Because when the recruitment is completed, the major training at Kiganjo is drills. Drills, but they are supposed to be taken through, for example, the Bill of Rights, how they should respect human rights. That one is given lip service, and as a result, the police are ill-equipped. Now, the other thing is, we moved from a police force to a police service. The police is even supposed to be oversighted by the public, to be by the public. We found that is completely disregarded. The public have no say in what the police do in the villages, and it is as a result of that training. That mentality, the colonial police mentality, in my view, has not been removed completely. The colonial police mentality was to control. Here we are a service. I mean, they are supposed to be a service. So that is the problem. So we recommended training, and even that's why I talked about promotion on merit, so that you get people who understand what they are supposed to do.
How will you then work on those recommendations? I think it's important because, obviously you'll be with us a little bit longer this morning, because then we can look into really what would happen at a presidential level to kind of undo a lot of the knots that we see currently. But we'll look into that in a few minutes. But for now, recommendations according to that report, because looking through the report, one of the words that was used in the report quite often was systemic. It showed up all the time through the report. So in order to remove a systemic thing, it sounds like an overhaul that needs to happen. And across the service, is there, number one, kind of like, piggyback on Dennis's question, is there an understanding of the Constitution? In this service, is a constitutional approach taken to doing its work? Many would argue that there isn't. We've seen a man shot point blank, died just a few days ago. We've seen another man who died within a small cell, who was murdered. Both of these men murdered.
Yes.
In a police cell. We have seen another story when a young police officer shot his OCS, or rather killed his OCS in the police station. There are cases without number. That's just amongst themselves. Now, when it comes with an outward approach towards citizens who should feel protected by the police, you should be able to go to the police and say, this is an issue, how can you help me? But now we are seeing that those degrees are getting further and further away from each other. So the recommendations in the report are fantastic. I've read the report page to page.
Yes.
But how can these recommendations actually be put in practice, established?
Thank you very much. Given the opportunity, as I said, we will start with training. First of all, recruitment on merit, come to training, and then looking at the Constitution and the law, the Police Service Act, you train and provide, facilitate them, and after that, now you demand accountability. Without that training, so that you change the mind frame, change the mind of the police from a police force to a police service, so that they understand that they are supposed to, the wananchi are the employers, and they are supposed to work with them. When you have seen demonstrations and picketing in other countries, what do you see the police with? Batons and shields. In fact, they are moving. Here, it is first of all, the first thing you see are tear gases, and then use of force. You have talked about shooting. total disregard to human life. When you shoot to somebody, even if it is you are shooting with a rubber bullet, but if you are at point blank, the police are supposed to understand that what that is likely to cause, the kind of injury it is likely to cause. The police have got to understand that the use of a firearm, for example, is regulated under the Act, and very, very strange conditions are put there before you can use it. What we see is terrible misuse and abuse. And why is this coming from? Listen to the politicians. Listen to what they are saying, what they are being told. If somebody comes, shoot. Those are the kind of reckless statements that are being made without thinking about the effect it will have on the minds of the police officers themselves and then to the public. So, given an opportunity, we will have the police retrained and facilitated to know that they are serving the people. They are not supposed to control them, just to control them, but to serve them.
David Maraga is the 14th Chief Justice of Kenya, and he's here with us this morning. We're going to now go into the next hour when we talk about, okay, so you want to be president, Justice Maraga. It's a tall order, isn't it? And there's a lot to be done. And talking about certain things that we've seen in the country and how you would interpret that, and tying that in from your tenure as Chief Justice, and looking at some certain things as concerns the rule of law, constitutionalism, and then tying that up then with reforms, work that you did, that you were assigned to do, and intertwining that with the current situation in the country. And now we are living in a time whereby you've said, you know what, I want to be president of the country. And even before we go into what you would do about what, I guess the first question would be, why do you want to be president of Kenya?
Thank you very much. I'm a Kenyan, like all of us here.
Well,
we know what is happening. We know what we are seeing. What we are seeing is that the country is sliding into anarchy and complete complete disorder. Because I've already talked about constitutionalism and disregard for the rule of law. In fact, I thought about this and I said, look, what are we leaving behind? Quite a number of people have asked me, look, why are you coming to politics at this age? I got concerned and I said, look, if we all keep away and say this is not for us, we might have no country. We might have no country when we are not there for our children and the grandchildren. And that is the concern of quite a number of people. So I thought about it. I was asked by friends. I thought about it myself. It's something I was thinking about. It's not that they came and woke me up. And I said, look, let me also come and play my part. And I looked and I said, look, let me play my part. If I can be elected president, I want to restore the country back to order, as we have already said. Restore the Kenyans the dignity they have lost as Kenyans. Healthcare is in shambles. Look at it. Healthcare is in shambles. They are changing from NHIF to SHA and SHE. That is something that we should have been planned meticulously, so that service delivery is not hampered. If anything, it should be enhanced. I don't have to go into the details how people are suffering in healthcare. Education for our children. If we don't restore order and redirect the resources to where they are supposed to be used, we are going to have a problem. I don't know about you. If it were not for government facilitation, I would not be what I am. Because I would not have been able to go, my family would not have been able to pay for my education. And there are millions of Kenyans, brilliant young people, who, unless they are assisted, they will not have education. What does that mean? their dignity is completely ruined. They don't have anything to live for. So I thought about that, and I said, let me come, and given that opportunity, I would want to restore that dignity, get education on its right footing, and healthcare. Move on to rebuild the economy. In fact, I have three main areas. Of course, the others will be like details. Reset the country into constitutionalism. Restore human dignity, and make everybody feel that he's a Kenyan and he matters. And then rebuild the economy. Provide an investment environment for the business people to do their work. You know as I do that the government can't provide all the opportunities for employment. In fact, the government provides very a small percentage of employment. You are here in the private sector. What does the government need to do to facilitate the private sector to operate optimally?
CJ.
You need to facilitate. In fact, the government should go to the private sector and ask them, look, what do you want us to do for you? So that you can operate optimally, create jobs for the young people, and prosper so that we have taxes. In fact, when the economy is rebuilt, you will not only have more money, but you will provide employment for our people. You wanted to ask him?
Yeah, CJ, you've mentioned the three areas that you are looking into, and I will task you on two. Let's talk about constitutionalism. If you talk about constitutionalism and you look at the Constitution of Kenya 2010, one thing that has failed is the implementation of the document to the core. You talk about the police reforms that have been there, the Kavuludi Commission, and the subsequent implementation of the same. It has not happened, including the report that you gave. It has not been implemented to the core. So what are your plans with regard to full implementation of the constitution? Number two, there is the aspect of the fixing the economy, and one of the problems that the country faces today is debt. We had a conversation here around odious debt. What would be your first item with regard to the debt the country goes into, and ensuring that justice is given to Kenyans, because some of the money that was taken ended into people's pockets? How would you canvass that?
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, we are where we are because of mismanagement of the resources. Mismanagement of the resources. If you were to get the details about budgeted corruption, you will be shocked at what is happening. Quite a number of things. When the government finds that money has been taken and it doesn't have money to fund operations, it goes into borrowing, and that now has gone has gone completely out of what is expected. What are we paying? It's like 69 to 70 shillings per 100.
Seems about 70 years.
Yes, to debt, national debt. Given an opportunity, the first thing I will do is to look to audit the national debt. What was this borrowing meant to achieve? How was it utilized? I will empower EACC. You know, that's if it is misused, that's an economic crime. I will empower EACC to do its work and punish those who misused public funds and went borrowing money and using it for in fact, you know, like public debt, especially when you are borrowing from out of the country, from other jurisdictions, from other countries, or from institutions which are out of the country. It is structured in such a way that you are supposed to use that money for that particular purpose. You are not supposed to divert it. But we know what happens with the Eurobond. The money was borrowed and it was not used for the purposes it was used. So we will empower EACC to trace where that money went and punish those people and recover that money.
I want to go back
what you're doing.
Sorry, go ahead.
Just
please.
one thing.
Sure,
that
please.
what the borrowing has done. You know, people talk about the late Kibaki as having done a lot to improve the economy. One of the first things Kibaki did was to stop borrowing. Government to stop borrowing immediately. What does that mean? What that means is that the banks went into the streets looking for everybody to go and borrow. With that, they reduced interest. Today, interest is at what level? 17%? What are you going to do to repay a loan at 17%?
Sure.
And make a profit? So what Kibaki did was to stop borrowing. I have a team of economists, and I'm humbled to have quite a number of experts in various areas. I have a team of experts who are working on that, so that we rebuild the economy, get change the economic environment for farms to operate. Now you know it as I do that quite a number of farms are closing down and moving to other countries, and you know what that means. When a farm closes down, jobs are lost, and life is affected. You are here working alone. If I asked you, you will tell me you have 10, 20 people behind you, depending upon you, and you know that is like the vicious circle we are having. So we wanted to rebuild the economy, reform agriculture, and provide an investment environment that will enable us to prosper.
Indeed. You mentioned education and health as two, and I just think about it, and it seems that those are areas that have taken a big hit recently. We have, it's been so long that a lot of people forget that UHC workers are on strike. They've been on strike. They've not been to work because they're asking for basic things to then be done for them. We have seen the defunding of education. And it looks, for all intents and purposes, that the CS has said, look, if I can't find a place to get this money from, I'm going to have to go back to parents and say, pay school fees. Are we going to re-envision a time whereby free education, which for all intents and purposes is not entirely free, that it might actually go out the door? So the question is, in terms of practicality, what could be done to sort out these issues? A lot of money has gone towards projects like the housing projects, for which the number of Kenyans who we were told would get houses, it pales in comparison to that number. Do we say defund those things which are not of direct benefit to Kenyans right now and put it in education? Defund projects whereby we've not seen outcomes and put it in projects where there are people waiting for certain things to happen, such as health. There are people sitting in hospital waiting. We saw a story this morning of a young woman who's been told, look, you wait for this thing to get worse or you pay cash today. That's the reality of the situation. So what practical things would we actually see happening?
Yes.
Or could we imagine that could happen?
Thank you. Thank you very much. A lot of money, as I've said, is looted. There is a lot of wastage. How many advisors were we told the president has?
Well, and counting.
20 plus.
And each one of them, to keep him, you are talking about 2 million shillings. His salary is the cars they are given, the security, it works to about 2 million shillings. And yet, the president doesn't need all those. What are the CSS doing? What are the PSS by their job descriptions? Those are the people who are supposed to assist the president. If the president requires extra advisors, they would be hardly more than 5. More than the 5, because the CSS and the PSS should be doing their work. So we are wasting a lot of funding that should be redirected. You have talked about education and health. Prioritize your the affairs. There are things which can't wait. Education can't wait. Health can't wait. When somebody is sick, you can't tell him, okay, you wait until tomorrow. Then we will see what to do for you. So it is that mismanagement and wastage. We will deal with that so that we get the country back the way it is supposed to be. Yes.
I have a question about IEBC. The president gazetted the names of IEBC. There is a court case stopping the swearing in of the new poll officials. Do you trust the current IEBC as has been constituted, one? And two, for those who argue, yes, you're running for president, but are you a project of President William Ruto getting into this race?
Okay. Let's start with the project issue. Some people asked me about, in fact, these days I'm not being asked about it a lot as when I started. Some people said because I was chair of the task force, now I am been set up to be a project. And I have refused to answer that question. What I have said, watch the space. You will make up your own decision whether or not I am a project of President Ruto. Because if I tell you no, you will say, look, did I expect you to say yes? Or something like that. Watch the space and see whether, and I'm asking even all the Kenyans, watch this space and see whether or not I'm a project of President Ruto.
About IEBC?
IEBC, you know, we are where we are because of things not being done right. Things are not being done right, and that's what you know. The recommendations that have come, including the one from Krila, was that the IEBC it should be in place more than 2 years before the elections. Why? Because IEBC is a critical institution. When it comes to elections, it is the one which manages. There's a lot of civic work, civic education that has to be done. There is a lot to be done, and it has to be prepared. Now, when you go to recruitment of the IEBC commissioners, I don't want to go into details because the matter is in court. But we have seen in the media that some people got their names got into the lists when they were not there from the beginning, and that is being done deliberately. In fact, you can even say it is being done deliberately so that the reconstitution of IEBC is delayed. When it is now reconstituted at the time, very, very close to elections, it will be running helter-skelter to put things in order. So, let's not go into a lot of details, but it tells you a lot about those who are managing that. This IEBC should have been put in place more than a year ago, and it should now be operating and planning on how to run the election.
CJ, let's just zoom out from Kenya for a second. You went to Tanzania for Tundu Lissu's case, which many called a pan-Africanist statement, perhaps. In Uganda, the president said civilians can be tried in a military court. In Tanzania, from your experience and what we saw from the likes of Martha Karua, Boniface Mwangi, and the other activists who had tried to get into Tanzania and all the drama around it, what does this signal to you? Because if you become president of Kenya, you will be working with other East African leaders. What's your reading of this high-handedness that we are seeing morphing within the region?
Thank you. The civic space is being constrained. And you know, what happens in Tanzania affects what happens in Kenya. What happens in Uganda affects what happens in Kenya, and vice versa. We are a community here. In fact, some of our people are across. You get communities, ethnic communities that are in both countries. So my going to Tanzania was in solidarity with the Tundu Lissu, so that the countries in our region can see that we are all concerned about the democratic space which is shrinking, and good governance requires that you have competitive elections. Like Tundu Lissu is right to contest. Is being denied, and that's why we went there. So in the region, I will be working with other leaders. We want me as a person. I would want us to emphasize the fact that you can't control what your fellow president does.
No.
But what you do might influence, and influence him when you are doing what you are required to do and operating within the law. You send a message. So that's what drove me to Tanzania, and what is happening around, and that's what has led to failed states. There are areas where we are supposed to assist. Our president is the chair. Is the chair of the of the East Africa? Yes.
Yeah. CJ, there is a matter that has been in the courts for a very long time, and one would want to pick your brains on that. There is the matter of NGCDF, there is NGAF, now there is the Senate Oversight Fund that is being put in place. And one would NGCDF, National Government, there is NGAF, and now there is also a proposal to have the Senate Oversight Fund that would go into everybody to have some fund for doing something. And it has been said, if you look at the purposes of a member of parliament, that would be representation, oversight, and representation. They have no purpose having any fund for them to do their job. As president, what would be your position with regard to these funds being in place? Is it another avenue for wastage of public funds?
It's a very, very serious matter. The constitution framework is that the funding is to be dispersed at two levels, at the national level and at the county level. They talk about CDF, for example. Why do the MPs require CDF? It's for their re-election. If you wanted to do so, they want to use that so that they can endear themselves to the electorate and be re-elected. When we are supposed, if funding is being done properly, it is being done at the county level. The MPs in that county, the senators in that county, their views are supposed to be heard as to how the funds are supposed to be distributed. That's where they should be heard, so that there is uniformity. But now you are giving funds to individuals. When you give an MP 100 million shillings, go and look at what they are utilizing it for. Token bursaries, token projects being done here. There was a time I was in some part of the country, and I saw a building which has been put up actually for a police station by CDF funds. Look at that building. I have done some bit of building. Look at that building, and you are told, look, this cost about 50 million to put up. When you look at it, it can't even cost 5 million. So that's wastage. You are actually giving the MPs money to go and campaign. Let us follow the constitution. Let the funding be done at two levels as the constitution requires, and let everybody's voice be heard. So that is the way. That's the only way equity can be there for everybody.
Isn't that the crux of the matter, really? Then when it comes to actually, it's one of the first questions, that abiding by the rule of law. Because if we're all plugged into a system whereby our culture, whether it is mental culture, whether it's a social culture, is that we know that there are rules to be followed. Somehow we are not plugged into that across board. And it's been argued on many occasions that it is it's a cultural issue. Again, it came up in your report, systemic. The same systemic flaw you see seems to be the same similar thread that runs through everything else. It's why you have 50 million shillings for a building, but it's a 5 million shilling building. It's why you have a road that cost 80 million shillings on paper, but then later we see that you spend 89. Well, you spend 8 billion, for example. It's the thing where it has become acceptable for impunity to reign. And so the question is, how do you claw back on that? How do you, I don't even know, I'm about to make up a new word, uninject. How do you get to the place whereby the culture, you inject with a brand new culture, you declutter and inject a brand new, how do you do that? How do you claw back on the damage that has been done by this culturalized way of doing things? And for oftentimes, a leader is not looked at to bring about, to say, okay, let there be more money in the coffers, or let there be now infrastructure and economic development all over the place. But if we see that this adherence to the rule of law and this culture shift actually takes place, all these other things seem to just kind of fall in place.
Exactly.
How do you do that?
Thank you. How I would do that, and I have said it many times, I will face corruption head on. I will face corruption head on, and deal with the issue of budgeted corruption, so that you know that so much has been requested by this department for this. Have a mechanism of oversight. Have a mechanism, if it is road construction, have a mechanism of knowing whether or not the funding that has been given for that road construction has been properly utilized. We have seen roads constructed, and hardly a year later, it is all potholes. And you ask, was there any need even of starting to put up a tarmac road? So, I mean, the utilization of funding, of the funding that is there, is something that we should seriously look into that, and that's why I said restore the dignity by dealing with corruption. We are not one of the richest countries, but comparatively, Kenya is doing very well. Kenya is doing very well. If we control corruption and rebuild our economy, and we have all the means to rebuild our economy. We have a very educated population. We have, Kenya has among the best experts on IT and other areas. In fact, you need to travel to other places and you will find Kenyans in very many countries. Use that. Get the country to industrialize. We are strategically placed. That if we get our act together and restore the industrialization which had started, Kenya was an economic power in East Africa. I don't know whether it is anymore. I don't know whether it is anymore. We were being looked to by our neighbors. I don't know whether that is there anymore. If anything, we are sliding.
Yes, CJ, there is the aspect of, if you look at the reason why the Gen Zs went to the streets last year, it was because of the taxation regime that had been put in place. And several scholars have said you can never tax your people into prosperity. In terms of your government and the tax regime that you would be put in place, how would that be? Because at the end of the day, the government needs taxes for operations. So how would that be?
Yes. As I said, we will audit the debt. And when it comes to taxation, I told you have a team working on that. In fact, there are some people working on taxation. There is no government which doesn't levy tax. Taxes in other countries, and like if you go to the Scandinavian countries, the tax is I'm told some goes as high as almost 60. But those people are not complaining. Why? Because everything is provided for. So what it means is that what we want is we want to come with a reasonable tax regime. a reasonable tax regime that the Kenyans will say, will know. You and I will tell everybody that, look, the government needs money, and we think this is reasonable given the services they are offering. What the taxation that has been imposed on us, and when you look at what is that achieving, look at the housing. Look at the housing. Yeah, the argument is that you need people to be given decent housing to live, which is a good idea. Could we have done it through the private sector? Could we have, because that would also spur the economy. The private sector, if properly structured, it will deal with that. Now, and it's coming when they are quite, especially the employed Kenyans. Some of them are taken loans to mortgages to build houses for themselves. The kind of housing that is being provided for is not the kind of housing they would want themselves. They are not given the freedom. They are not given the freedom of choice. And the way it is being done, and the taxation allegedly for housing, we are being told now it is being diverted and being used for other resources. We were told it is even building stadiums. It is going to do that. Is that the way you go about that? The tax regime should be looked at holistically and ensure that you don't overtax. As you have said, you cannot tax your people into prosperity. You don't overtax, and make sure that you get a reasonable tax regime.
CJ, last year, President Ruto, the protest that led to him now dissolving his cabinet, one of the things he said is he's going to, among other things, austerity measures. And I'm listening to you, and your presidency seems to be pegged on, like you said, constitutionalism and order and the rule of law.
And restoring dignity.
Yes, human dignity.
Rebuilding the economy.
Yes. Okay. On rebuilding economy, I'm curious to know how your government will look like, because when you talk about the economy, one of the things that has always been an issue in this country is the wage bill. We talk about bloated executive. We are talking about advisors. I'm curious to know how your government will look like and how you'll manage the wage bill. You've talked about managing debt. As president, how many cabinet secretaries will you have, for example? How are you going to manage and cut the excesses within government?
An ideal size of the cabinet, if my recollection is right, is about 14 to 20 CSS. Consolidate some of those functions. Consolidate some of the functions so that you don't have a cabinet secretary in charge of culture and another one in charge of sports. When you can amalgamate quite a number of those. We have parastatals whose functions are overlapping. And if anything, they are drained to the public resources and with very little service delivery. So it is a question of restructuring the government in such a way that you reduce the wage bill. We have had talk of even ghost workers. Look into all that and ensure that the people you engage are people you actually require. As I said, when you rebuild the economy, those who don't get employment in the government will be absorbed in the economy, and that's the way to go. Mismanagement of the resources is critical. why all this is coming up is because of complete mismanagement of government functions and the government, the economy.
Okay.
Have you been approached by any of these political movements that are sort of realigning? So you have offshoots of people who are in previous governments now coming together as opposition, as the other alternative. You are an alternative as yourself, but have you been approached to join a party? Are you considering a party that you're going to run with?
Yes, all that is in place. It's being worked on. It's work in progress. There are people who have talked and said we can work together. What I'm doing at the moment, my main focus is to get my vision completely clearly set out. Then when I have got my vision, I will now as I talk to other people, I'll say, okay, you want us to work together, these are the parameters.
Okay.
For me, these are the parameters. Can we work together on this? We want to reset the country to constitutionalism.
Okay.
We want to restore dignity to the Kenyan people. We want to rebuild our economy and restore the dignity and the independence of the institutions. If you are ready for us to work on that, please come.
Are those your bare minimums for the people you'd want to work with?
Yes. Yes, I would want. After all, it would not make sense for me to go into politics if I'm not going to render service to the Kenyans.
Would you stop borrowing? It's one of the issues that we see today.
I don't want to stop borrowing. This one area I will look at critically and reduce borrowing as much as I can.
Okay.
So that the money, there is money in the economy. Yeah.
All right.
Borrowing, as they say, if you are in a hole, don't continue digging. Find a way of getting out of that. Yes.
Okay.
CJ, you see, when you talk about governments over time, it is government that are put in place by the people.
Yes.
But you realize when it comes to government running its affairs, it now becomes it is the people against the government. How would you change the face of the government such that it is government and the people working together to push the country forward?
Public participation. Listen to the people. And by the way, you might think that your grandmother in the village has no idea. she will tell you, and I have done some tasks I've done require public participation, and when you go to the people, to the grassroots, when you get the ideas, they will tell you, you'll be amazed. They understand what is required.
Okay.
So involve the public. After all, you are serving the public. You are not serving yourself. It's like we are in a system. The systems that we have now are extractive. What some political scientists have called extractive. You go there to enrich yourself. You go there to loot and amass wealth, when it is supposed to be the other way around. As government officials, as a government, those who are in government are supposed to act like trustees. The resources placed in your hands are not for your own benefit.
Yeah.
They are for the benefit of the Kenyans, and you have to manage them in such a way that they give service and the benefit to Kenyans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kenya is in agreements with a number of entities. These are some economic entities. Of course, the tinge of politics is not far removed. Whether we look at sectors of energy, entering into contracts for years, where a lot of money then is paid. I think a lot of the money that is being paid now in terms of debt are for things that never really were engaged.
Yes.
The contractual terms and the interest on some of these is what Kenya has started to pay so far. There are power purchase agreements, for example, that are in time for decades. And that whether you use the power or not, for example, you're still going to have to pay for it. Those are some of the things that we're talking about. Some of these lease agreements that the country is in that actually gobbles up quite a lot of money is one of the stumbling blocks towards realizing some kind of economic independence for Kenya. What would you do with things like that?
I mean, when you get to power, those are among the things you look at first before you enter into the contract. What are the terms of this contract? How are you going what role are you going to play? If you are getting into a contract where the contractor has an upper hand, for example, that you should think very, very carefully. You have talked about the wastage and the looting is done through those contracts. Procurement, the procurement processes are skewed to enrich, or to enrich those who are in power and control. So the contracts themselves that you enter into, the clauses of that contract must be examined very, very, very critically. For example, there's one contract I saw. It involves a multinational from Britain, for example, and you are told that in case of a dispute arising between the government of Kenya and that contractor, the arbitration has to be done in London. If it is Chinese, it has got to be done in Beijing. In Beijing, and you know, I mean, all that. What is that? You know, it is skewed. Yeah, you are not playing at the same level. The contract is skewed to benefit those multinationals. Those are among the things that our lawyers, the Attorney General's office, has to scrutinize carefully. Are we getting value for our money? So that you don't enter into those contracts. And they come, you know, with a financial package. They're the ones giving the finances, and they are telling you, okay, we will give you money. This is what we are going to do. You have to be careful about that and see whether or not the Kenyans get value for money.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that is a matter of concern is the sheer volume of work that has to be done to fix anything. Anything. If a house has collapsed, for example, and you think, okay, here under this rubble, we start to clear away the rubble before you get to the problem. If there's a crack in the wall in any house, you have to say, okay, well, what do we have to clear to get to the crack to fix that, or do we have to remove the whole thing and start from the beginning? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of manpower. It's a lot of expertise and resources that are required to fix any mess. Now, when we look at a nation whereby there are things that have gone wrong, we admit that there are some things that are going right. That's true. But when you look at the things that you must undo to get to the place where you'll be saying, okay, finally, at least you can stand, it is a lot of work. And there's going to be a lot on a plate of anybody who takes on the reins. Even today, there's a lot on the plate of the president. There's a lot to do. And it may look as though anybody says, well, I want to and I can handle it. Do you take into consideration the sheer volume of work that has to be done to stabilize things before you even start to look at growth progression? Stability before then saying, okay, let's start to do you take into consideration how much work actually has to be done?
Exactly. That we are working on. There are areas where you are going to require more manpower. Yeah, more manpower to be able to manage the workload. And there are others where you actually don't need to increase the numbers. It is a question of the working culture. There are people, you know, there are people who do the bare minimum. You're given an assignment. I mean, what is supposed to take a day, you're doing it for a week. Those are among the things that you are going to look at. You don't have to because if you are managing the wage bill, you must look at the numbers that you are going to engage, and how you can optimally engage that. So that all that is being thought out, and we want to ensure that we have a reasonable workforce. We have a reasonable and a workforce that is recruited to do what it is recruited to do. You know, we have quite a number of people, incompetent people who are given positions. They don't even know what to do. That's why I told you quite a number of institutions have been rendered almost useless because of the employment policy that has been used. You get people who are your cronies into positions they are totally incapable of performing. What I will do to restore the institutions is to ensure that the right people are given the right positions, competent people, and we don't lack them. We have very many qualified Kenyans who will fit into all these places. Give them an opportunity and demand accountability. Demand results from them when you have given them.
Well, TJ, you are on the streets, standing with the mothers who lost their sons and daughters during the protest for last year. And among the things that the protesters were agitating for was Ruto must go. There were calls of one term. President later came out and said, whether you're saying one term, two term, doesn't matter. But then he asked, how do you want me to go? Feels like there is a sense that 2027 is far. And what he was also asking is, how do you want me to go? There is that agitation that he needs to go. Where do you stand with that? And which way or which path do you think he will need them to follow if Kenyans can't wait for 2027?
Thank you. Those I have had those demands. It's as a result of the frustration that the Kenyans find themselves in. With those calls, Ruto must go. Actually, the president should go on a retreat on his own and think about the Kenyans he's serving. Is he serving those Kenyans? If they are actually abusing him left, right, and center, they have no respect for him. He's asking, how should I go? That's why I said, go on a retreat even for a week and think and reflect. And if you come to the conclusion that the Kenyans don't want you, resign. You resign and dissolve resign and let there be election so that Kenyans can get the person who should be there. Short of that, there is no any other way other than to go through elections. But because this issue of Ruto must go now is because of the frustration and the harm the regime has done to the people of Kenya. The frustration and the pain it has caused to the people of Kenya. When you get mothers, you said the mothers I was marching with, you tell her to wait until some other time for her pain to go. You're increasing the pain. When those people have been offended, they have been injured, the government is supposed to be sympathetic. They have not shown any feelings for those people. Instead, if anything, it's worsening. How many people have we been told? We have been told about 19. Is 19 or 20 people who have already died?
19 is the number,
counting.
Yeah.
There's a 14-year-old
yes.
who's just died from the bullet wounds.
Yes. And all that is being blamed. All that is being blamed on those marches and the families of those people. Have you heard anybody, any government official talking about the wounds we saw on media with rungus? And you see those jembe sticks.
Yeah.
All of them new. You can even tell that they have been sourced from one point. And they are besides they are being escorted by the police. Nobody's talking about that. And you remember I made a statement and I said that, look, the moment the government gets wounds, enlists wounds, we are sliding into anarchy. It's not because we don't have enough policemen. We have sent some to Haiti. It's not that we don't have enough. It is simply because even some of those policemen who are sent there to to control. If you talk to some of them, they will tell you that they are being given mixed signals.
Is there any politician within the current space that we have that you can endorse or say they represent your leadership style, or you feel they represent your vision? Is there any that you can mention by name?
I don't want to mention by name, just in case anybody feels that I am being discriminative or what. That we will emerge in due course when we as we go on. That will emerge in due course. And there are quite a number of Kenyans. There are quite a number of Kenyans who want to work with us to build this economy. Whenever I go and I meet people, they say, look, CJ, we are behind you. If what you are saying is what you are going to do, I mean, we are behind you. We are going to work with you. I mean, that tells you that the Kenyans want a change. The Kenyans want a fundamental change. They don't want cosmetic changes. They want us to go back to where the Constitution requires us to be.
All right. CJ, the government that you will be forming, you've talked about a lot of reforms that need to place, a lot of constitutionalism and rule of law that needs to happen. That would mean independent bodies to work. Talk about the legislature, executive, and the judiciary to all work together. Would you be calling for reforms in these institutions and for accountability for wrongs done in the past? Because at the end of the day, everybody has to pay for their sins.
That is number one thing we are going to do. I have said we are going to do an audit of the odious debt. We want to recover, and we will use the institutions we want to recover. We will go by the law. We will go by the law and say, look, this is what you have done. Whatever you took, you must pay back to the Kenyans. So you talked about the politicians. The politicians who will have the same, or is it Okari who said that, who are having the same values. I have quite a number of people. I have quite a number, especially the young people, who are saying, look, we also want to be given a chance to play our part. One of the things that I'm going to, our campaign, as I've said, is value centered. We are not going to give handouts to anybody, and I've told. I've met some young people wherever. Like when I go to a supermarket, I come out and wanasema mzee, sasa tuko na njaa.
Tuacheka kitu.
I tell them no, that is not the kind of campaign I'm going to run. We are not going to run a campaign where we are going to dish out money. First of all, I don't have money. And at an appropriate time, I'm going to appeal to Kenyans, and I'm appealing to you through this, all of you three here, to assist us financially. By getting money from Wanjiku, I will be obliged to give her back the service she paid for, the service she wants, she requires to be given. So that I am not going to be controlled by anybody. The funding we are going to raise, and the Kenyans have promised me they are going to raise that. The funding is going for operations, for logistics, and we run. In case we get excess, I can assure you we are going to give it back to a public cause. To start on accountability, we give it back to a public cause. My government will emphasize on those in government not enriching themselves. Yes, and for us to get the youths to play their role in government, we must change this the electoral process. The electoral process, the way it is being run. Somebody uses 10 million shillings. He comes in. The first thing he wants is to recoup that amount, and thereafter begin building a war chest. And you will have only those who have money to run for positions. How are the young people going to run for positions if they have not been given an opportunity? We want to have a level playground by stopping that. Campaign funding is going to be a critical area that we are going to look at. We have very many ladies who are not endowed with a lot of resources. They are not given an opportunity to play. You know, if you go into family life and why God created man and the woman, there are roles our ladies play that we can't. There are aspects our ladies bring to management and leadership that men don't have, and vice versa. So that's why the gender balance is, that's why the Constitution demands for gender balance. So we want everybody feeling included in his government, feeling that he has a part to play, and allowing the young people to also come into leadership. We are in the world of technology.
Indeed.
We're in the world of technology, and this is where our young people are shining. When will they get an opportunity to use those skills that they have acquired, if we cannot set an environment where they are also considered?
A lot to consider. A lot of work to be done.
A lot of work to consider.
A lot of people to convince. And thank you for being here with us to have this conversation this morning, to talk about issues having gone, issues that we see currently, and what Kenyans' hopes are for the future. The 14th President of the Supreme Court, and as well as the 14th Chief Justice. Thank you for being here this morning, David Maraga.
Yes.
And as you continue in this, we wish you all the best, and we look forward to engaging with you about the things that matter in the future.
Can I say one last thing?
We can.
Thank you for this opportunity. I want to appeal to Kenyans. I want to work with the Kenyans. We are still listening to the people to get what exactly they want. And I want to tell you that the government I will have is a government of the people. I will want to work with people who want to deliver for Kenyans. And we are going to give the Kenyans an opportunity to have their affairs taken into account. To have their affairs into account. That's why I am talking about resetting the country to constitutionalism, restoring the dignity. You know, when a sick person goes to hospital and they can't, somebody requires dialysis, and they can't get treated. You have removed the humanity in him. Get our security agencies working properly, and rebuild our economy. The three pillars. The others will be details, and I'm sure the Kenyans will be happy. I have a feeling that we have a lot of following. It's a question of ensuring that we are facilitated so that we can come up with a government which will work for the people. Thank you very much.
David Maraga, thank you so much for being here this morning, and thank you for being in Kenya's biggest conversation on the 2nd day of July. The Situation Room joins you again tomorrow at 6 at 4 minutes past 10. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.